Hello, 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 and welcome to the session titled Seven Types of Leaders. Which are you? Let's do something about our music, shall we? There we go. Welcome to our session from Singapore. My name is Harrison, and I am the co-founder of Gold Zone Group. And joining me today is none other than Victoria, the CEO of Gold Zone Group. Welcome, Victoria.
Welcome to the 7 Types of Leader LinkedIn Live session.
Thank you. So, as I said, my name is Harrison, and what we're going to talk about today is leadership. And I know what you're probably thinking, that there's 1,001, if not 1,000,001 books on leadership, opinions about leadership. It seems like everybody has one. Everybody thinks leadership is something that is the person in charge, the boss. And today we're going to talk about leadership from a very different point of view. We're going to look at leadership and emotion, and how emotion drives all behavior, and how that behavior can be categorized into different types of leaders. And the reason we would want to do that is so that we can predict behavior, ours and other people's. Then we can predict how people are going to respond to different situations, who's going to be the best person in what role, who to hire, who to fire, who to help, who to marry, who to invest with. This is a big subject because the number one challenge most people have is people. And if you think about what you want from life, career, business, it all involves people, doesn't it? Even though we're inundated with AI. So the Gold Zone Group is a small group of companies, and one of our projects is the Gold Zone Leadership Center. We have a wellness center, a medical clinic, an investment company, a technology company, a publishing company, but we're all very small, focused on the best of the best. And we're going to talk more about how leadership impacts each and every one of us. Over to you, Victoria.
Thank you for the introduction. And yes, it's all about people. And I think it is true that leadership is very much talked about. And I think when all of us here on LinkedIn, and when we look at LinkedIn, we do hear a lot of different leadership advisors, leadership theory, and how it can help all of us. And from our point of view, we would like to have this session to bring a different perspective, and from more of a practitioner point of view, and how you can solve some of your leadership challenges, whether it's with your fellow colleagues, your employees, or your employer, because leadership can be up, down, or sideways. And how about people that you are leading who are not who you don't have a authority over? So that's the kind of leadership that we talk about. It's all about, I would just like to add that it's all about getting the results you want, getting the result we want as a leader, to feel like you have more control, more confidence, and more courage.
That's very good. So, Victoria, there's 1,000,001 theories about leadership. What's going to be different about what we're discussing today?
That's a very good question. Would you like to share? You talk about emotion, right?
Yes. Well, we're all familiar with emotional intelligence, aren't we?
Yes, and that's
So,
another area to discuss what's the difference, and how it impacts us.
so if I can share for a minute, why I got interested in leadership is that I noticed that the people who did the best in life took a leadership mindset. They took a leadership role. And regardless of having titles or a position or authority given to them, anytime someone would take leadership for themselves and would own the outcomes that they wanted, own their results, and would look at what they were getting and adjust accordingly, these people really stood out. They were the exceptional performers. They were easy to work with. People liked them. People want to be around them. People would contact them for opportunities. And leadership seemed to be this differentiator. Now, I started my career as an engineer, so I think like an engineer, systematic, and when there's a problem, we always work backward to identify what the cause of the problem is. And I always wondered why there's not more of a systematic understanding of human behavior. Because one of the projects I did about 30 years ago. It seems like a long time now. It's about 25 to 30 years ago. 30. Was helping business owners grow and do different and innovative marketing strategies to double, triple, quadruple their revenues and their profits. And we would always find that people would get stuck in this mindset of what's possible and what isn't. And if they never shifted their mindset, they would never be able to tap what's possible in terms of growth and doing it systematically. And I found there's this glass ceiling that people would always hit. And I tried to understand why this would happen. And there must be a way to predict who would be the best person and who wouldn't, which projects to invest in, etc. And so I embarked on a mission to understand for myself. And that led me down the rabbit hole. And years later, we developed a system based on emotion. And, it seems funny, but anytime we're not getting what we want, there's some emotion in the way. And anytime, we know we should be doing something, I'm sure you can relate, Victoria, and everyone here can relate too, that anytime we know what we should be doing, but we don't do it, there's an emotion in the way. So emotion and leadership seems to be very closely correlated. And that's what we're going to share today. How it's correlated and a simple understanding of the different 7 types of emotion and 7 types of leaders. And then what type of leader we are, what type of people we're leading, and then how to lead different types of people based on where they're at. Over to you, Victoria.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a little bit hard not to talk about emotion when it comes to being a leader because, like I said just now, it's all about getting what we want. What result are we wanting and what are we not getting? And how often do we get frustrated when we don't get what we want? I can definitely admit that over many years, every time I don't get what I want, those of you who read my post on
Yes.
me being sucked at losing and not getting what I want, that's something that I feel is not very much talk about. And what do I do as a leader when I don't get what I want from my employees, from stakeholder, and what do they how do employees and stakeholder, what do they do when they don't get what they want, and how do we come together as a team to be able to help each other get what we want? And I just want to add to that, to what Harrison was saying.
Thank you. So if you're hiring a team, how do you know and how do you differentiate between the people who are very good at telling you what you want to hear and the genuine players? How do you differentiate between the two? How do you tell when someone is just telling you what they think you want to hear versus someone who's being genuine? If somebody joins your team based on their public relations, then they're not going to last long, they're not going to do well, and neither you nor them will be happy because it won't work out. So how do you cut through that to know what's really the truth behind the scenes? And, the stakes are high when it comes to hiring people in startup projects. And it gets less and less when you're in an established company that's been around for years and huge amounts of capital reserves, and they can fund a bit of disruption there. So for companies that are starting up in smaller projects, it's more critical, it's more sensitive. And then how do you market to the right clients? How do you know which client is best? What's your ideal client? And how do you resonate with them? Because there's a lot of people can waste a lot of your time, especially on LinkedIn, right, Victoria? You can be having lots of conversations with lots of people and the wrong people. So how do you identify the ideal people to be communicating with?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, there's some universal principles of leadership that will never change. These are like thousands of years old, and they still apply today. However, in today's environment, where we hear every day about AI, ChatGPT, machine learning, robotics, self-driven cars, and we're going to have a lot of disruption, and it started happening already, and a lot of the tech companies are laying off people. In today's world, how we do business, how we communicate, how we network, how we get on with people is very different than how it was in the past. In the old world, in the old days, we would be like a small village where we would be working together closely. We'd get to know people. We would be neighbors. We would know them for our lifetime, for a long time, and we wouldn't travel that far. Today, we have a global village where we're interacting with, doing business with, having clients and vendors on different sides of the planet. So technology has enabled us to scale at a much greater level than we could before. LinkedIn has enabled us to have personal communication with people from anywhere on the planet. And with 1 billion users, this is an amazing vehicle for connection with people that takes the global village to a whole other level. And it can be very intimate. And some of us are just getting started on LinkedIn. Some of us have been around for a long time. And even LinkedIn is changing. How you communicate on LinkedIn has changed this year over last year. So the rules of the game have shifted. And that applies to leadership too. How we lead and interact with people. Our granddaddy, in his way of leading, is different than how we have to do it today. And young people have different needs from their leaders than did the previous generation. So we have to adjust and do it differently. And how are we going to do that? Because the biggest differentiator we have as human beings is relationships. It's the biggest differentiator.
Hey, that's what LinkedIn is about. Relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
So building relationships that are more than a transaction. And if both parties in a relationship are taking the lead, what you have then is a partnership. And that's what most people don't realize, is that a partnership is a higher level relationship where you're both taking the lead and working together. And this is much more effective because you have redundancy. It's much easier. It's a bit like this session, Victoria. There's you and I in a partnership. We have different roles, but we're here cooperating on this session.
Yep.
And I can go offline and you can continue, or you can go offline and I can continue. And that's a partnership, which is the highest level of relationship that you can have. And leadership on both parties is what a partnership needs. A transaction is where you're just trying to get money from people, and people are trying to get money from you. And isn't that repulsive? Isn't it completely repulsive when people connect with you and then the next thing they send you is buy my this, buy my that, do this, do that, and there's no real relationship building?
Yeah.
How do you find
I
that,
think,
Victoria?
yeah, I think, yes, I know it's not that easy, especially, I can't remember who I heard that from. If someone, I can understand people trying to sell things, people trying to promote their services and all that. At the same time, I think, like you say, the world has changed. And these days we have more sophisticated buyer, and people are wanting to look for something that's of more value. And we have more access to different things and different information and knowledge. So how do you share that to your ideal client from a business point of view? And I think a big part of that is what is relationship, where you get to know each other, you get to know what people are wanting, and you offer a solution to them along the way, in a way that can help them save time, save frustration, save money, or make more money. I think that's a big part of relationship, where you can give each other, have the exchange where everyone is going to get what they want. It's not just a one-time hit that, oh, let me sell you something now and that's it. Next.
Yes, and how do you build relationships in a world of AI? Because if you leverage AI to build relationships, then they're not really dealing with you, they're dealing with an artificial intelligence, and people can tell. It's like the articles of the posts that are done with AI, or when someone writes you a letter and it's AI that wrote the letter, it's missing something. And a competitive advantage we have as human beings is our creativity and our relationships and our ability to empathize and have emotion and an emotional exchange with each other. And that's
Yeah.
really what this session is all about in the different types of leaders, because different emotions drive different behaviors, and everything people do is motivated by an emotion. Everything you buy, everything you say, and everything you do. And many people like to think that they're logical. And I've found in all the thousands of people I've dealt with over the years, the people who think they're the most logical, if you dig a little deeper, it's all driven by an emotion.
Yes. Hey, talk about that. Since you mentioned empathy, Kenneth Chu asked about, is there such a thing called empathy leadership? Since you mentioned that emotion, empathy, what does that actually mean?
Well, what is empathy first? Empathy is where you feel what the other person is feeling. So this is very different from just saying, yeah, I understand. It's actually where you feel it. And when you feel it, you can relate to it at a different level. So as a leader, if you have empathy, then if you're going to lay off 10,000 people, you can feel what those 10,000 people are going to go through. And then you can make business decisions based on the needs of all your stakeholders. And you can feel the needs of the investors, of the vendors, of the employees, of the clients. And, too much empathy will drive you crazy, and too little, it makes you more, like transactional, isn't it?
Yeah.
So empathy as a singular style isn't so useful, but being able to have empathy is very useful in terms of understanding other people, and communicating with empathy means that you're communicating in a way that they feel that you get them. They feel you. And when people feel that you understand them and you actually get what they're going through, they're more inclined to take the lead and to trust you. Because
Yeah.
without trust, what do you have? You have nothing. No one's going to do anything if they don't trust you. No one's going to follow a leader if they don't trust them, unless you have a gun to their head and you're forcing them to do something they don't want to do, which is how the old title and position used to work, is that you would have a carrot and a stick. You'd reward the people that you want to do what that are doing what you want them to do, and then you're punishing those that don't. Today, hey, you could just quit. If your leaders like that, could quit and work somewhere else. And if the company's invested all this time, energy, and money in training and developing you, then all that investment walks out the door. But what would happen if, Victoria, what would happen if the company invested the money regardless of you walking out the door or not? Then it takes that off the table, doesn't it?
Yeah. I have hired people who I know that it's not going to be long term. But I feel that while they are working with us, they are a great asset. It's not such a big deal. It's a win-win-win. They get to add value to our organization, and with the understanding that they're going to leave within a short term. And
Yeah, and when you
meanwhile,
do that, then you're giving. And I think this is the new world that we live in, is one of giving. And this is not an altruistic, just something in theory. Oh, it's nice for you to say, Harrison, giving. But hey, we got to make money here. Well, let me tell you why the giving is so important. I'll break it down real simply. We all are resistant to being sold. We're resistant to marketing messages that have a headline and a sales pitch. We're resistant to people giving us sales pitches. And we have no resistance to somebody who talks to us in a conversational manner and is interested in us. And if they're genuinely interested and they have a genuine conversation where it's a two-way back and forth, being interested in the other person, and there's a dialogue, then trust gets built through that interchange, through that exchange. And it's an exchange of energy. Then there's trust built. And then if there's a transaction to be had, then you trust the other person when they recommend something. Well, I recommend that you get this particular type of office chair. Based on what you've told me, this one will suit you, and here's why. And that's very easy to have that conversation when people trust you. But if you walk in the door to the office company and they say, buy my chair, buy this one, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this, they're talking at you, they're not talking with you. And so many people on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and in the world in general are talking at us, not with us. And this is the key difference with leadership today, is that we want to be led in a two-way conversation, in a relationship, and we want to be inspired. Young people today, Victoria, they want to be inspired and they want to feel like that their work is contributing to some greater good, that it has a higher purpose.
and
They
they are
want to build it
included.
with their money, right?
Yes, and they are included. They feel included. It's not just a job.
So just a job would be you show up, you do the minimum, you get paid, right?
Yes.
You show up, you do the minimum, you might enjoy it, and you get paid. But
Exactly.
what if you cared about, I'll just use this as an example on top of my head. What if you care about dolphins and whales, and the job that you have contributes to the welfare and benefit of dolphins and whales? Then you're going to be much more engaged. You're going
Yeah.
to be much more enthusiastic. You're going to love what you're doing, and it's going to show in all your communication and in everything you do. It's going to show that you love it.
Yeah.
And then when you engage with people, isn't it easy leading people when you love something?
Yeah. Yes. Actually, it
Like a
reminds.
restaurant, your favorite restaurant, when you share about your favorite restaurant, you
More
do it
feeling.
enthusiastically, right?
Yes. Actually,
Passionately.
yeah. You remind me of a Gallup studies years ago that talk about how the average engagement level engagement level of an employees in most companies, which is very very low, because what a lot of organizations don't take into consideration is to include people's heart in the role that they are in, regardless of what role they are in. And the level of engagement from their research at that time, and that was pre-pandemic. So post-pandemic, I believe is worse. I don't have the statistics for post, but pre-pandemic was about 20 to 30%.
Well, isn't what you're talking about, Victoria, is that we can engage someone's body in a job, but how do we engage their hearts, their minds, and their spirits in the job? It has to have a higher purpose. And in order to have a higher purpose, there has to be some vision that is communicated to the team by whoever the leader is. And if I can get on my soapbox for just a minute, a lot of people talk leader this, leader that, leadership this, leadership that. It's a complete and utter. Now, I'll just disclaimer. I'm born in New Zealand. I'm from Australia, so we call that wankers. So it's it's ridiculous. They're not a leader. They call themselves a leader, but actually they're a manager. And if you understood the difference between managing and leading, there's a huge difference. Just because you have a title doesn't make you the leader. A leader is where you have a bunch of volunteers that are going to follow you. If you have no followers, how the heck are you a leader? What are you leading? You're leading who? So there has to be followers in order to be a leader. And the leader's job is to share the vision. And they don't have to create the vision. Somebody's got to create it. But if we all create it together, we're all going to own it. If one person creates the vision, then one person's going to own it. But if everyone co-creates the vision, then we're all going to be inspired and engage with the vision, and the vision will lead everybody. And that's the key. You know, you've been posting lately, Victoria, about vision, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand what it is and how
Yeah.
it works.
Yes. It's
In a
tough.
minute, I'm going to share where visionary leadership fits and why it is so important today more than ever, and that everything we do has to have a vision connected to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when it comes to leadership and people, right, one of the most common, I would say, complaint or challenges that a lot of leaders face is people are unpredictable. So you said at the beginning, what we're going to discuss is going to help more predictability, and this is going to help bridge that our discussion to help everyone see why uh, leading people is not just an art. It's actually a systematic approach. And if you learn more about people and understand it in a systematic way, it's a lot easier than not. Not that you won't have problem. You will still have problem, just that you have more solution and more capability to deal with it.
Hey, Victoria, where do people learn about people now? Where do they learn about relationships and communication? Where is it
But why don't you
taught?
ask everyone? I honestly, it really most of it I would say come from maybe personality tests, some form of is those kind of a program that can help you have more understanding of yourself and other people. And those are probably the most popular one. And anyone can add to it on a comment.
So when people are in a sales role, they learn about other people within the context of having a sales system, learning what motivates people, how to communicate with people, how to lead people. So that's from sales. But so many organizations don't teach the accountants the the same thing. They don't teach the bookkeepers. They don't teach the customer service people. They don't teach the frontline people. They don't teach the back-end people.
Yeah.
And what's different about what we're discussing today from a personality test?
Well, a personality test is something that I would say that it's great as a start to help you understand yourself and other people. Based on my experience, we actually do evolve. Just because I'm a certain way now doesn't mean that I can't be different. And to a certain extent, it doesn't take into consideration there are many things that personality test doesn't take into consideration, which is my stress level. How do I behave when I'm stressed versus when I'm less stressed? Also, my environment, and my confidence in myself to communicate what I want, that can impact the so-called personality. Because I used to be more introverted. I'm not a networking kind of person, but I like to talk. So it's a little bit hard from a personality test point of view. I shouldn't be in sales profession if I doing the basic test. But I started my career in sales profession, and I was very successful in it.
So you're a contrarian too, huh?
Well, you can say that.
Do a personality test. You should not be in sales. Well, that's it then. I'm going to go to sales.
Just tell me what not to do, and I'll go do it. So
I want to add to that is that the personality tests, I've taken a lot of them to learn about myself and learn about other people. And I found them very useful as a basic understanding.
Yes.
And I used to use them more. And then I ran into some of the limits of, how people would show up in different circumstances. And you mentioned environment and relationships and communication and what's going on at home and where people are at. And there's something missing in terms of universal emotion. And what I found is the more skills that I developed, the more that I trained myself, the more that I learned, the more knowledge that I developed, then I would break these personality tests. And so when you work on yourself, things will change a bit. And I think I'd like to move into looking at emotion and how this applies to what we're discussing today, if that's okay, Victoria?
Sure, go for it.
And then we can talk more about how the personality tests compare with this, because I know a lot of people ask us this on an ongoing basis, what's different from a personality point of view. So we're going to start somewhere. I'm going to put some slides up, and not too many. I have about 3 or 4, and I've kept it real simple to a minimum. And I was going to have this discussion with no slides, but I felt, the slides would add some depth to everyone. So let's take a look. We're going to start by talking about something most people have heard of, and that is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I'm just going to put myself on full screen. We can still hear from you, Victoria.
Yes, while you are doing that, right, I think it's good to see the definition of personality to understand the difference between what we are talking about versus a personality test. Because what we are going to discuss is more behavior-based, right, approach, understanding people's behavior and how it acts out. So personality...
I would take it another level, Victoria. It's more about your results.
Okay.
What we're discussing is your results rather than your personality, because, what's your personality, Victoria? I really don't care. What I care about with you is, are you going to get the results? You're the CEO of the group. So what I care about is you getting the results of your role and how you do it and how you relate to other people and how you relate to me and the rest of the organization, investors, stakeholders. So what we're sharing is talking about the results and then working backward to, if you want to change the results, what the heck is the least amount of change you have to make to get the result to improve?
Least distance path.
So the personality is great, but let's look at the result and work backward. So you have something you want to read before I get into it, is it?
Well, I was just thinking, being on the same page with what personality actually mean from a dictionary point of view, so that we are all on the same page. Is that necessary?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, no problem then.
I think we just dive into this and then we can discuss it further after we get a little bit of context here. Ken?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at something we're all very familiar with, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Here it is behind me, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if I just do a quick review of Maslow's hierarchy, even if you've heard of this before, you know it, even if you're an expert in it, I'd like to take it to another level and connect emotion to it, and then how emotion drives behavior and what's really going on here. So if we look at the basic level, Maslow, Abraham Maslow, he studied human behavior and unmet needs. And his theory, and it is a theory that a lot of us subscribe to based on our own experience of people in life. And the theory is that most of our behavior is driven by our unmet needs. And when we meet the basic needs, the next level of needs become what drive us. And then the next level, and then the next level, and we work our way up this hierarchy of needs all the way up based on fulfilling the lower level needs. And when our lower level needs are not met, we obsess about the thing that we don't have. Like if you have your dream car in the garage, let's say your dream car, I don't know, let's say it's a Ferrari, and in your garage sits a Ferrari. And let's say you love a red Ferrari, so you have a red Ferrari in the garage. And do you obsess about the Ferrari? No, because you have it. The people who obsess about Ferraris are the ones who don't have it. And that's how the basic needs drive behavior, is that if our physiologic needs right here on the base are not fulfilled, food, clothing, shelter, then this is what we focus on. And why bother talking about our aesthetic needs if we aren't even going to survive? It makes sense, right? So we need our basic level survival taken care of. As we rise up, once we have our physiologic needs, then we're concerned with our safety needs, then our security needs, then power, then esteem, then aesthetic, then we're dealing with transcendence and self-actualization once we've met all the lower level needs. Now, if you notice where power is sitting here, so if somebody's obsessed with getting power, that tells you that they're somewhere down here trying to get up to there. Because if you feel powerful and you have all the power you need to achieve what you need to achieve, to do what you need to do, you're not trying to get power when you already have it. You're working on the next thing up. And what happens with the power zone or the power dynamic is that the next thing that you want is fulfillment. And fulfillment is the next one up. Esteem is where your fulfillment kicks in. And beauty and aesthetic and passion and self-expression is here at this level. And the very top is transcendence and self-actualization, where you feel you're fulfilling your purpose here on earth. And you have all these lower level needs all met, and you're just focused on that one. Now, there's very few people who are here at the top, very few people here, many people here, even more people here, but the majority of people, if you look around the world, are dealing with basic survival. And then a lot of people's safety and security. You know, the people who are looking at financial security, obsessed with their finances, are sitting here at the security level. And then they want to feel powerful here. Now, how this relates to leadership is that each of these 7 levels of Maslow's hierarchy corresponds to a predominant emotion. It also corresponds with the 7 stages of childhood development. In addition to the 7 stages of childhood development, there's the 7 different chakras that will follow the same thing, and then 7 different primary emotions. And in a minute, what I'm going to do is move to look at what the emotions are that correspond with it, and then we're going to look at what type of leaders, when someone is on the level of physiologic needs, what kind of leader is that? And when someone is at the top of the hierarchy, what type of leader are they? And then if someone is in one particular place, let's say power, and then their survival and security is threatened, and then they go down there, what type of leader are they? So this is dynamic, looking at how people respond to their results and the circumstances around them.
Well, it also corresponds with the people who works with you, everyone that you interact with. And it really does impact our effectiveness depending on where they are at, how we communicate with them.
That's right. So if you're higher up here and the people you are leading are down here, and if you talk to them the way you like to communicate from up here, there's going to be a mismatch. There's going to be a problem. And that's why a lot of people have this disconnect between the leadership and everybody else, isn't it?
Yep. 100%.
So
Well,
if you're an organization that's dealing with luxury items and you hire people who are in survival mode and you don't know they're in survival mode, then they're going to have a particular set of behavior that's inconsistent with your mission and your products and your services, and you're going to have problems. So it's good to know if someone's in survival mode. And
how
when you're dealing with, go on.
I wanted to say how it can act out is that they will not be able to promote things that in their mind that are too expensive, and they will limit their ability to sell. So they will
Right.
always sell the services or things that looks the cheapest, because that's how they project out their own survival issue, and they don't know. So from that filter and from that projection, other people, they don't know how much can people afford, and they try to make sure that they do it within their own comfort, which will limit your ability to as an organization, your ability to sell what you want can be limited by where they are at.
That's right. Excuse me. My water went down the wrong way. So the product or service that you sell, the business or organization that you work with or lead, where is it on this hierarchy of needs? Where's the organization itself? Where are you? Where's your focus? And where are your clients or your team members? Excuse me. Where are your team members and the people that work with you or that follow you? Where are they on this hierarchy of needs? Because if they're here dealing with safety needs, then you're going to have a different relationship with them than if they're up here dealing with power or esteem. So just think for a minute what you obsess about. Are you obsessed with fulfillment, or are you obsessed with success? Or are you obsessed with getting in the zone? And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about is being in the zone, and people with the Midas touch. These are people at the top of the hierarchy here. And the people who turn everything to clay or poo-poo are down here. So these people are the ones that everything they touch turns to clay. And these people up here are the ones that have the Midas touch. And there's everything in between. So I'm going to show you in a minute how this corresponds. Shall we do that now, Victoria?
Yes.
All right. Can't help but laugh at the people who turn everything to clay, right? Because we all know so many people like that. Everything they touch, it's a disaster. So what we have here next to the hierarchy of needs, Maslow is on the side there, and then the other ones here listed 1 to 7. What these are is emotions. So you have numb at the bottom and serenity at the top. Now, to a lot of people, numb and serenity looks very similar, and they can't tell the difference.
Yep.
The difference is the following. When you are numb, you are wooden, you lack emotional expression, and the people around you are in chaos, and you are just
Peaceful,
no feeling. What's that?
Supposedly peaceful, where everyone is running around like crazy.
That's right. So the difference here is quite a bit when you're numb versus serenity. Someone in serenity, they can dip down into passion, enthusiasm. They have access to passion at will. They can get angry at will, and then they can be calm at will. Whereas someone who's numb has a lot of difficulty being angry. And when they get out of their numbness, the first place they hit is the next one up, which is level 2 here. They get level 2 that way right there. They hit the loss zone or a reaction zone. And from there, they hit fear and then anger and enthusiasm and passion. And so it's a long way to go up here. Whereas when you're at the top, you can go up and down easily. You're more mobile. You have access to all your emotions, and you realize there's no good or bad emotion. Whereas the people who are numb, they don't have access to them. And the next thing I'd like to show you is the types of leaders. And then this will bring it all together. So here are the 7 types of leaders that we've found. And what we've done is we have mapped Maslow's hierarchy, the different emotions across 53 different dynamics of life, career, relationships, health, wealth, your relationship with money, your leadership, your ethics, your level of responsibility, how you respond to problems. We mapped it all across these different dynamics. And the summary of it is in these 7 types of leaders. And the thing to ask yourself is, which one of these looks like your natural style? Now, allow me to explain a bit. In terms of emotion, we all can go up and down emotionally throughout the day and at different times. But what happens is sometimes when something great happens, we feel very ecstatic for a moment, and then we're back down to where we are normally at, or our chronic emotion. So we have an acute emotion and a chronic emotion. And where we are most of the time throughout the day is what's known as our chronic emotional state. And that is what drives most of our behavior, and it drives our style of leadership that we use when we're in that emotional state. And I'll give you an example. When you're happy, people can ask you for something and you're more inclined to say yes when you're happy. And when you're not happy and when you're grouchy, people ask you and you're more inclined to say no because you're unhappy. So knowing when the person is happy and not can determine the outcome. And so you want to ask people for things when they're happy, not when they're unhappy. So if you meet somebody and they're unhappy, do you go away and come back? Or do you know how to get them out of the unhappiness and to have them being more happy while they're dealing with you? Goes back to empathy that we talked about earlier. But how you apply this different types of leadership based on unmet needs is that a leader who is obsessed with power and control is a dominator. And you can see that a dominator is into position, they're into command, they're into control, and then that's how they run things. They run things with an iron fist. And you might wonder, why is that in the middle? Because a lot of people say this is old style leadership and it doesn't work and you shouldn't do it. The problem is, if the building is on fire, wouldn't you want someone to take charge and tell you what to do and where to go? The answer is obvious. Yes, you would want them to tell you. You wouldn't want them to sit around, have a committee meeting, have a discussion. Let's all take into account everybody's feelings. Let's talk about who's the best person to lead, and then make sure that we cater to all the different generations and different genders and everything. And let's talk about it. And when we've fleshed all that out, let's put it to a vote. By then, the building's burnt down. Everybody's dead. So in an emergency, you need someone to take charge, and someone with authority and someone with position to tell you exactly what to do. And if you look at that in your relationships and in your organizations, if you're an emergency all the time, then that's one thing. But most of us are not an emergency. So when we're not an emergency, what type of leader do you want? And what type of leader do you want to be? You don't want to be one of those dominators, because if somebody's telling you what to do, there's a bunch of people like Victoria and I who don't like being told what to do, right? How many of you like to be told what to do? Yeah, you like to be told what to do? I don't think so.
Most people don't like to be told what to do. And yet a lot of people need to be told what to do.
So the people who need to be told what to do, if you look at these 7 levels, where are they? Level 1, 2, and 3, aren't they? Level 1, 2, and 3. So the being told what to do is a last resort. And what we need is, we need someone who can influence us and who can do it enthusiastically, and they can express it in a way that includes us. And that's your level 5. They use influence rather than position, domination, power, control. But you need to be able to have position, power, domination, and control in order to use influence. Because what do you do when the influence doesn't work? You have to be able to use your position. If you can't use a position or you can't use that particular style, people are not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of recently I posted on LinkedIn about some stories relating to Lee Kuan Yew. And Lee Kuan Yew, he was a visionary leader. He was level 7, level 6, level 5, level 4, but never level 3, 2, or 1. He was always floating between level 4, 5, 6, and 7, depending on the circumstances. And a lot of people will criticize him because when he would be in level 4, this would drive some people crazy because it would be authoritarian. But if he didn't have access to being authoritarian, then things would fall apart and we would all be the worse off for it. So Singapore is what Singapore is today, as successful as it is, being a tiny country with small amount of resources, because of the leadership of Lee Kuan Yew. And he had access to all 4 higher levels of leadership. And his visionary ability to see the future and to say, hey, let's get the banking system from Switzerland. Let's go around the world shopping for the best of the best and bring it into Singapore. That takes a lot of vision.
Yeah.
He wasn't attached to
Defense
his way
system.
of doing things, right, Victoria?
No. Best defense system, best banking system. What else?
Administration, finance, the banking, yes, the military, the defense, the organization. I mean, often when we arrive at the airport here, the bags come out before, like they're there before we do.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. So organization, systems, and there's a whole lot of things we could talk about. What's great about Singapore, and it's directly the result of exceptional leadership. And that's what we all want to aspire to, is to be the best leaders we can be. And we need to have visionary, we need to have passion, which is where innovation is, and we need to have influence, which is where enthusiasm is. And some people, they can be enthusiastic for 5 minutes until someone says no to them, and then they get grouchy and they get reactive.
Actually,
And
that's a
yep,
good gauge in terms of where our default is. If I can't last, if my enthusiasm can't last for a long time, that means my default is not enthusiasm.
that's right. And that's
Only
when you're interviewing people, Victoria, what you do is when you talk to them, they will be enthusiastic for the interview because they know they need to be enthusiastic. They need to be interested. They need to ask you questions. And so they're able to fake it for the interview because it's short.
yeah.
So how you bypass that is you ask them how they respond when they don't get what they want. How do they feel? What do they do when someone says no to them consistently? Do they give up? Do they get angry? Or do they become more determined to try in a different way? It's like someone can tell you in theory they're a certain way. So you say, give me an example of when you were working on a project and you were excited at the beginning because you had a vision. What was the project and what was the vision? And then they'll tell you. And then you say, how did it work out? What obstacles did you run into? And if they tell you they had none, it's not real, because every project has obstacles, right? Every vision has problems with implementation. So you can tell by asking them specific examples of what experiences they've had, whether it's real or fake.
Yeah.
Even AI can fake enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah. Yes. The interesting thing is we were talking about emotion, empathy, and what differentiates us from AI is our emotion, right? And our ability to connect as human being. One thing that came to me was actually the other thing that differentiates us from AI is that we are imperfect. So anyone who tries to be over perfect is missing the magic. We are not perfect. We all meet challenges. We all have our fair share of struggle and challenges. The difference is the how we deal with it in our own way. and whether we get the result we want from how we respond to challenges.
Yes. And isn't that amazing how LinkedIn works today? Is that LinkedIn encourages you to share your personal story and the challenges you've had. And then that's what people resonate with, the challenges.
Yeah,
Because isn't life, business, leadership, isn't it tough? I mean, it's really hard dealing with people, dealing with investors, dealing with customers, dealing with all the pressures, the timelines, everything. It is tough. It is not easy.
yeah,
And being able to share that journey with others who can also resonate with it. I think you're, Victoria, doing a great job of sharing your experiences and then sharing lessons with people along the way. I think from where you started, and you were saying that you were more introverted, and they would have said to you, don't go in a sales role and don't go into a leadership role.
I shock a
And
lot of people going into sales.
suddenly you're publishing stories every single day with lessons in them. This is really amazing. Well done.
Thank you. And it's interesting because someone who talk about superpower, someone talk about, oh, Kenneth, superpower. And I think we all have our superpower that is waiting for us to discover. And in my experience, right, the area that I felt like that a lot of people talk about focusing on our strength, which is true. We all should focus on our strength. At the same time, the area that I resist the most, the area that I feel like I'm the weakest in, end up to be my biggest strength.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Oh, so in sales, they say, I didn't have many friends. And one of my consideration at that time was, do I need to cold call if I don't know many people? But I don't really want to cold call. But that was the very thing I did that get me to the result I wanted.
Amazing, really. This
Yeah.
superpower concept comes from your weakness and
Yeah.
what you resist.
Yeah.
And when you resist things, it's telling you that this is the thing that you need to do, what you resist the most. Because if you look at that diagram behind me, the resistance and reaction is level 2. And in
Yeah.
order to move from level 2 to level 3, you have to deal with your resistance and your reaction.
Yes. So
And
face it.
yeah, you have to face it. So whatever we're resisting is keeping us down in the lower levels, and our results are going to reflect it. We're going to be impotent. We're going to lack power. We're going to lack the ability to follow through.
Yes.
And connected to this is a question that I see Kenneth asked, and I apologize, I can't see all of your comments and questions. I just noticed the one that Kenneth Chu asked about, are leaders born or made? And if we quote Lee Kuan Yew for a minute, one of his most famous sayings or quotes is that he's never seen a leader who was made by attending a leadership course. So actually, it's one of my most popular posts on LinkedIn, and it had the most engagement talking about this subject: are leaders made or born? And there's so much money invested in leadership training, and most of it is wasted. And I don't think that there's natural born leaders. I think that all leaders are made through their environment, their circumstances, and the person themselves, their personal choices. And if you have parents that suppress you, that don't listen to you, that invalidate you, and have an unsafe home environment, you will tend to be suppressed and not show leadership. And if you're a rebel and you're a contrarian and you're in that same environment, you will react and resist to all leadership. So this means that it depends, really, born or made, depends on the environment and the personality of the person. And in terms of me, I wouldn't thought I would be a leader. Victoria didn't think she would be a leader. So were we born leaders? No, not necessarily. We were made through our own desire to be the best that we could be and having a vision. We wanted to, well, I can speak for myself. I wanted to be the best me that I could be. And I wanted to connect with a vision and share something as a higher purpose. And when you have a higher purpose, it's amazing what you can overcome in terms of challenges, right, Victoria?
Yeah. Yes.
And why vision is so important is that you might say, you know, if I'm dealing with matters of survival and security, and I'm in this security mode, which is where most people are in the security mode, which is level 3. They hesitate, they're driven by fear, they're worried all the time. If you're in that particular mode, you might say, why do I want to focus on the vision? I can't even see the vision. And I'd like to say why this is so important is that we all should be spending more time connecting with a vision. And if you have trouble connecting with your personal vision, find somebody who has a vision and get on board and follow their vision until you can connect with yours. This is the fastest way to move yourself up as a leader, up from these lower levels, all the way up to the higher levels of really, ideally, you want to be in 5, 6, and 7. To get up in 5, 6, and 7, it takes having a vision. So if you're connected to someone else's vision, you're going to get up there faster. And then you can connect to your own vision through them. When you have your own vision, then you become the leader that other people are following. And this is what's possible today with technology like LinkedIn and stuff. Amazing, isn't it?
Yes. And I think that when you share that, it reminds me of the quote, right? If you want to solve a problem, you can't solve your problem from the same mindset that created the problem in the first place. So when Harrison shared that, I was thinking, if I keep trying to solve my problem from at the level that I am at, going for vision is going to shift my mindset, and it makes solving my current problem a lot easier because I'm going to shift my way of thinking. I'm going to be able to be more creative, and from that place the problem become a lot smaller.
That's a great point. Shifting your mindset. We all know we want to have a growth mindset. And I've asked thousands of people if they have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. Well, 90% of the people will say that they have a growth mindset. But we know statistically it's not possible, that there must be a bunch of fixed mindset people who say they're growth mindset because they want people to think they are, or they like to think they are. We all would like to be growth mindset, but not everybody is, right?
Yeah. No. And I
So we
think
know that
yes.
having that growth mindset is going to help us. Yes, Victoria.
Yes. I would say that what's in the way of a growth mindset is actually our emotion. Because if I can't handle losses, if I can't handle losses from my emotionally, I can't take losses easily, and I throw a fit, or I feel dejected, depressed because I don't get what I want, and I can't get out of it, I become more fixated. And the more losses I have in life that I don't deal with, the more fixated I become, the more I'm going to give up. And that's why from that place, I'll be stuck at 1, 2, or 3. Generally, it'll be 1 or 2.
Does that mean, Victoria, from that point of view, that when someone has a fixed mindset, they have unresolved losses?
Yeah. And don't have a solution. And the hope is less because you don't feel hopeful. Because what everyone needs is to have some hope. Obviously, not just hope for the sake of hoping, but have some hope while having solution. Having hope on its own is one thing, but you got to go find a solution. With hope, there's opening. No hope, no opening. So who is going to persist if there's no hope?
So if you've given up, you're not going to have any hope. And that's what
Yeah.
level 1 has given up completely. And they're
Yes.
just going through the motions. And these
Yeah.
people are like a black hole. They suck everything in, all the energy in and everything. And until there's a crisis, and then they hit level 2, have a reaction in
That's
the
true.
reaction mode. A lot
Price.
of people are in the mode all the time. And having a vision that inspires you, uplifts you, and connects you is where the hope comes in. And what we do as an organization is we help all kinds of people to solve the real problem that's keeping them stuck and help them to have a breakthrough, tap into their own vision, and then rise up these levels and kick ass across the board. And they can do it in their finances, relationships, communication, leadership, business, everything, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Actually, Kenneth asked a good question. Do you think parents need to be? I think most of us, a lot of us here are parents, which I'm sure people are interested. Do you think parents need to be leaders and we can use these 7 levels as a guide? Yes,
Yeah.
please. I, okay, so I'm speaking as a parent. It has been the best thing that happened to me as a parent to use these 7 levels. It helped me to uh, clearly I'm not perfect. I have my fair share of stress and I have my fair share of being feeling bitchy with my kids. At the same time, it has really helped me a lot to be the parents I want to be and to handle the area that I'm not. I didn't feel I'm good at.
That's right. And I would add to that, Victoria, that not only do the parents want to embrace leadership and to see themselves as leaders and do it in the new style, having a vision. And then what that means is that you want to inspire your kids to have a vision too and
Yeah,
to be leaders. So then you're leaders
right.
leading leaders, and you're encouraging everybody to be the leader, and you're creating room and space for people to make their own choices and to show up as leaders. So
Yeah.
having that context, you end up with more responsible, more productive, more communicatory, or if that's a word, better communicative,
Communicative.
more communicative, yes, and more engaged, more happy children, and a happier family when everybody is doing that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Victoria, if people want to know more about leadership and the 7 levels, we have all kinds of tools that we're happy to share with people. They can just
Yeah.
message you. They're on LinkedIn, and we're happy to send them whatever resources we have. And the other thing is, every week at noon on Wednesday, we're going to be doing a session like this. This is our 4th one in a row. Today, we're talking about 7 types of leaders, which are you. And you can see we can only get so much covered in 1 hour.
Yep.
And we'll have a different subject for next Wednesday. And then every Wednesday at noon Singapore time, we'll be live here on LinkedIn. Over to you, Victoria.
Thank you. I wanted to just add one more thing to the question on, is leader made or born? Do you fake it till you make it? I would say that one thing that has helped me and many others over the years as a leader is that you got to have the desire. Having desire makes a big difference to want something, to want to have to help you to have clarity. What do you want? There's no right or wrong, except that we are all going to get the result based on where our desire is, and that will drive a lot of the different choices and action in life. So yeah, so I just want to say that, and thank you everyone for joining. Harrison, you have anything else to
No,
add?
that's it. Thank you for
Thank
joining.
you,
We look forward to
Harrison.
seeing you. We look forward to seeing you online. And if you have questions for either of us, you can text us on LinkedIn and
Yes.
connect with us and share your stories with us. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining. Have an
Thank you.
awesome day.
No heart? Where's my heart?
You just got to hold it still for a while. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Have an awesome day, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.